Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar on unlocking the India market opportunity. I am Anshul Ajay from Startup Réseau. We operate accelerator and market access programs across various regions, including India, Canada, Africa, and Southeast Asia. You'll hear more about our work and initiatives from our founder during later part of this webinar. Moving on to the first segment of our webinar today, we have Sanjay Swamy, Managing Partner at Prime Venture Partners, and Pranav Dholakia, Partner at Deloitte, for a fireside chat on unlocking the $5 trillion opportunity in India. Over to you, Sanjay and Pranav.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, hi, Pranav. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Start with a quick round of introductions for the audience, and then, of course, dive into our favorite topic here. It's kind of appropriate that we're speaking at 5 p.m., the topic being the $5 trillion economy, I guess. So.
That's true. That's true. So, Sanjay, would you want to start introducing? Then I'll carry.
Sure. I'm Sanjay Swamy. I'm founding partner and managing partner at Prime Venture Partners, which is an early stage VC fund focused on technology startups in India and from India. Some of our companies that might be recognized are companies like MyGate, Neo, WheelsEye, Credx, MoneyTap, Quizzes, and so on. We do a lot in fintech, SaaS, and of course, several other areas like health tech. We have Dozy and so on. I think just quick background, I've been an entrepreneur all my life, grew up in India, lived in France and the US, worked in Silicon Valley for several years through the dot-com era boom in the 90s, and experienced sort of the first wave of startups in India. I was the co-founder of ZipDial and EasyTap, and before that was the first CEO of mCheck, which is a mobile payments play. I worked with Mr. Nilekani on the Aadhaar program as a volunteer during the the launch of the first Aadhaar. And that's sort of where I got this belief also that digital was going to be a big part of India's future, and digitization was a path to driving India's growth. And that story has sort of started playing out over the last decade, and it's been a real privilege to work with amazing entrepreneurs in the ecosystem and the whole ecosystem here to make that transformation happen. It's great to be here on this event.
Great. Thanks, Sanjay. That's a illustrious career there. Hello, everyone. My name is Pranav Dalakishvili. I'm a partner with Deloitte. I focus on M&A, tax, and regulatory. So my core work is on advising clients who are looking at acquiring businesses, divesting businesses. How do you structure the transaction in a tax and regulatory efficient manner? I advise foreign clients on their inbound strategy as to from which jurisdiction to enter. How do you structure the investments, both from a funding perspective as well as from a regulatory perspective, and so as the Indian corporates who are looking at making overseas investments, right? How do you structure those transactions? And besides that, the Indian corporates and Indian domestic clients who are looking at doing the M&A activity, how do you structure that entire transaction? And it's a wide gamut. There is tax involved, there is other regulations, and there are a lot of regulations that are involved: company law, SEBI, exchange control, competition commission. So yeah, it's a vast field, and I enjoy doing what I do.
Wonderful. No, and it's such an essential part, right? I think we, as entrepreneurs and VCs, we dream about the positive upsides and how to and look really at building product teams, businesses. But an integral part of that is ultimately, how these things sort of reach the quote unquote exit milestones, whether it's through an IPO or an M&A, and bring liquidity back into the system so that we can make this a virtuous cycle. So I think the role that you guys play is a critical one here. Yeah, so maybe I'll start with a question for you, Pranav. How are you seeing the regulatory environment in India in general? How has it evolved over the last decade, and what do you see as perhaps high level, indicative thinking from the government perspective on fostering this ecosystem and some of the challenges? And yeah, would love, maybe we start with that and then happy to share my thoughts.
Sure, Sanjay. So the regulatory environment has definitely evolved over the past maybe 2 decades, right? Since the time I started practicing, and of course, even before that, we are seeing a government right now which is quite robust, which is very quite aggressive in the sense of coming up with policies, helping out on the various aspects. Now, really from an M&A perspective, if you really see any person who's looking at making an inbound investment into the country, the two most important things that they are really looking at is that consistency in policies. And second is there's a very clear and cut tax regime that is there, right? Now, from a policy perspective, as we are seeing in the past couple of years, we see the government has evolved, has been has been listening to the investor community, has been listening to the corporate community, and wherever possible, they are being including it across in their policy framework as to how to evolve it, right? From and then making it more investor friendly, getting more FDI into the country, more foreign investment. And so is it from a tax regime perspective. We did see some big tax related retrospective amendments which were brought down a couple of years ago. But since this government has come across one underlying statement that they have been saying that whatever changes or whatever policy on tax that they want to bring about, that will always be prospective in nature. This gives a lot of clarity to the foreign investors, state who are planning out their investments into India, and it helps a lot from that perspective.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So Sanjay, just a question for you. From a $5 trillion economy, where do you think this thing is going to come? Where is your sense? How are we going to bridge from the current where we are to the 5 trillion and maybe even more from 5 trillion? How do you see and how do you go about that?
Yeah. So personally, I don't really think of any of those as goals. But I think we see massive opportunity here in India, Pranav. I think what we are seeing, if you think about the growth that's happened over the last decade also, a good part of the growth hasn't necessarily been towards growing the economy as much as the transformation of the economy, right? From a offline paper intensive process to today, you go get a telecom connection like that without filling a form, just with your fingerprint, thanks to Aadhaar. You sign documents electronically, you make all your payments electronically, right? So even if that had not explicitly grown the economy, it has translated it to a much more, in real-time, instantaneous, very convenient to get these connections and to start and to make payments. So that, I think, is still the first phase of the opportunity that we are seeing. Inherently, just because of that, you're going to see some growth in it, because it, when you make the ease of doing business, things happen, right? So that's actually, I think, all we have seen so far in the last decade. Now, what's happening next as a result of it is, I think there are going to be two accelerators, which collectively will probably give us, some sort of opportunity for exponential growth as well, to get us to, from a $3 trillion to a $5 trillion economy quickly, and approach that with like a very aggressive slope to get to 10 trillion as well. And I think that has to do with a combination of the policy, a combination of digital transactions, whether it is GST, whether it is retail payments, whether it is consumer payroll and things like that, even in the informal sector getting digitized, things like that. And what that will mean is there will be access to data through which people can get credit. And we have seen several examples in our portfolio. One of our companies, a company called Finac, which does retailer financing, just for them to be able to procure goods from their existing distributors, right? So if you're a HUL or a P&G retailer, you can procure goods on credit. In the past, you had to pay for it. That immediately increases the endpoint retail sales by 20%, right? So I think we'll start seeing a lot of those happening, and that injection of credit into the system, or whether it is a logistics company like Wheelseye in our portfolio that is able to finance a trip for a small trucker, trip from Delhi to Bangalore might cost 70,000 rupees, and he may not have that working capital. But if he had that working capital, and now it's a reliable trucker, they are doing up and down 4 times a month, you'll be able to give them one more opportunity for revenue generation, right? So I think the first phase will be on all aspects of credit here, right? And that I think is in itself a massive, massive opportunity. And that will start a domino effect, right? Which will sort of a virtuous cycle, because more credit will mean people are doing more business. People are doing more business. They are more wealthy. They're able to re-inject more into investing in their business and so on. And that's where we will see the first wave. The second big thing that's happening is we obviously have a huge demographic dividend, which in my generation growing up used to be seen as a big negative in India, right? The fact that we have this huge population. But I think the combination of digitization, education that's happened, opportunity that's happening for all, the ability to work in the smaller towns and still make a reasonable living, all of that is going to create this virtuous cycle of people being able to contribute to the growth of the economy. And because of there being the youngest population with such a large internet base and digital base, where we have honestly leapfrogged the rest of the world, right? Whether it is on digital transactions, financial services, and so on. I think that will create the third reason for this becoming a self-sustaining virtuous cycle. We are going to benefit, I think, in the medium term to the China plus one strategy from a manufacturing perspective, from a geopolitical circumstances are going to make India a very attractive country. I think government has managed to quite masterfully ensure that all overseas policy does not fundamentally rub people the wrong way and focuses on India first, which is I think has been a very smart move. So I think a lot of good things coming together for a perfect storm. And sometimes I feel just almost as they say, only the paranoid survive, Andy Grove's book. I think that is the part that sort of concerns me from time to time. But I can tell you for the most part, there's a lot of excitement. I think the startup ecosystem will have a huge role to play, but it will be opportunity across the board.
Absolutely, Sanjay. And the point that you mentioned on demographic dividend, right? And that is only going to get more effective. So as you see time going, you're going to see much more younger lot, which is going to come and they're going to be working. And the kind of money that they will be earning, the spending is going to be there, and that spending is going to lead into higher amount of consumption, and that consumption will automatically result into the various other aspects, right? Various other industries. You need that infrastructure and everything. So that domino effect is definitely going to come across. On this China plus one, as also I understand, people are looking at an alternate option, right? After what happened in the past couple of years. Do you think from the options perspective, like besides India, there is other countries in Southeast Asia also where people would like to India versus the other rest of the world, Southeast Asia more specifically. Any thoughts?
So I think there are 2-3 things here, right? One is if you're looking at a manufacturing base from China plus one, you're right. Some of the other countries might be legit contenders, and I think it's not going to be a winner takes all, but there is a large enough opportunity. So that is the one thing that's going to happen. The second part, however, is from a global perspective, a large English-speaking base, which is in a democracy with a stable government, as you talked about, stable policy, etc. Those will go a long ways in making India the preferred choice. If you think about, the deep tech companies or SaaS companies that came out of Israel, for example, in the 90s and the past 20, 30 years, the difference is that they don't have a domestic market at all, right? So they can only focus on the US market. But the companies that are coming out of India, and we have a couple that I've been privileged to be investor in, are actually robustly testing out and proving things out at the cost structure of India, and building world-class products that are now something that you can export from India, right? So I think it's less about India being a destination for and more a creator of solutions, right, from India, which are going to go to the rest of the world. So I think those are the opportunities that are probably more exciting, but we will have enough opportunity on all fronts.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the government push also comes with ease of doing business, clarity in the regulations and policies that will get more aspects, as well as the investment opportunity in India, right? I don't think we are just restricted to one or two sectors. It's across the board. We name it healthcare, infrastructure, financial services, manufacturing. So I think that gives a very big, large gamut out here.
Absolutely. See, if you think about India, you literally have the richest parts of Beverly Hills and the poorest parts of, some of the poorest parts of the world here to serve, right? And you can serve, you can choose the segments you want, and they're all large segments, right? And so if you think about the opportunity here, for once we're actually in a situation where you can say, look, I'll just pick a small sliver of the population because they're now accessible over the mobile phone and internet, and I can build a product and serve them. And that's what's creating excitement in the startup ecosystem, which was not there 10 years ago.
Right. So Sanjay, I have a follow-on question. As you are looking into all of this, how does the investing in the funding landscape look for say the startups or the entrepreneur community out here? What is your thoughts? What are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, so certainly, if you take the 10-year horizon and projections for the next 5 years, 10 years, right? It's extremely attractive, and it's a very hot sector. People certainly are expecting big things to come out of this ecosystem, and we are seeing, as an investor, a lot of outreach both from overseas, but also the new thing that's happened in India is the access to serious amounts of domestic capital, which is targeting this asset class, right? So venture capital as an asset class was not understood by the HNIs or the ultra HNIs here in India and the corporates, right? That is starting to also happen. So and the Indian startup ecosystem has sort of gone through a lot of evolution, and wherever things start growing very fast, sometimes they overheat, and there's been a little bit of correction in the last 24 months. So if you're reading the newspaper headlines of late, it might appear like things are actually, completely stopped. That's not true at all, right? What has happened is, I think, a maturing of the ecosystem. You can't just run a car in fifth gear all the time. You sometimes have to slow down, go to second and third gear and build up the momentum, but come out much stronger in the process, right? And so that's what is happening right now. There's a lot of good companies that are refining their internal processes, their unit economics, all of these things, and making sure they're here to last. But the startup journey is really a marathon. It is never meant to be a sprint. And I think whenever sometimes it looks like a sprint, I think things fall off the rails. I am, if I look at 2023 versus 2021, I might say, well, we have slowed down a lot. But if I look at 2023 versus, say, 2015, it is a huge leap forward, right? And I think you have to look at this industry in sort of 5 to 7 year segments. And I think the belief of the Indian entrepreneur to attempt something that is aggressive, that is audacious, that is global in nature, the belief that the Indian consumer will actually buy these products and services and use them in India, the belief that Indian businesses also now realize they should be buying products and not just thinking about things with the services mindset. All of these things, I think, the industry has moved forward substantially. And I think that's what is exciting from a venture capital ecosystem, because we see the opportunity to create large companies in India. Even though the stock market has corrected and some of the early IPOs may have had some hiccups coming out the gate, the reality is that happened all over the world in the last 24 months. And I think we are now richer in our knowledge of the types of companies that the Indian stock market will support. And it's almost created a very clear direction for startups to say how they need to look over 5 to 7 years in order to have a successful public listing. So in many ways, I would say we have learned a lot over these last 24 months, and the opportunity is very ripe.
Absolutely. And Sanjay, in fact, I was reading somewhere, we've gone back to the pre-COVID levels, right? The air traffic that is there, the space is back to the pre-COVID levels. So what you're saying is it's resilient. People have just started moving around and about, and that consumption theory again comes back into the whole play.
Correct.
Right. in and around.
Absolutely. You know, I mean, an evening ticket on a Friday evening from Hyderabad to Bangalore is 14,000 rupees.
14,000, yeah.
One way, you know, it's unthinkable, right? It's
for a 1 hour flight.
Yeah, for a 40-minute flight.
Yeah.
And it's packed, you can't get a seat. So, yeah.
True. So I know we are running against time, but just two more things. Maybe Sanjay, we can touch upon. What are the challenges? Maybe what are the challenges and opportunity around for us to reach that 5 trillion, or the larger economy to grow from where it is? What do you see there?
Yeah, I think every now and then there will be some bad apples in the system that will attempt shortcuts. I think the system has now become a lot more resilient, but I think that will continue to be a little bit of risk in the system that as a country, I think this is true worldwide, right? It's not necessarily in India only. But we have to be a little patient about this. We have to stay the course. Some of these things will not work out. In fact, India in many areas will be unique. And so that actually will create very unique opportunity for Indian companies because it's hard for others to come in. So, but I think consistency and patience and just continued belief, because there will be more bad days than good in this journey. It's not a simple thing, a simple climb there. People, I think we will have to, if I was to give an analogy of a vehicle, I would say we can't be building sports cars, but we have to build SUVs. They have to be very rugged. They will get the job done. It may not look pretty. Most of the time, it will not look pretty. But if one is here for the long term and thinking long term and focusing on the things one can do right, great things can happen. Right? There's no guarantee for success here, but in the grand scheme of things, getting there is bound to happen. And I think what I would like to make sure is that we get there in a very robust manner, building sort of brick by brick rather than trying to take shortcuts.
Absolutely. And to just add on to that, Sanjay, with what I mainly see when I discuss with my clients and from a tax regulatory perspective, a few things that they that they also see as challenges and which they would want us on the labor law perspective, right? To get the labor's thing right from an intellectual property perspective. How if a foreigner is coming and investing and they're creating their own tech and their brand, how do they protect their intellectual properties? Maybe this is something that we need to progress maybe a little bit more.
I was encouraged to hear recently, Pranav, that apparently startups that are registered in the Startup India program are getting patents granted in under a year, which is a huge thing in India right now. It was like a black hole. Even if you just put the application and you never know when it gets processed. So those are some good positive signs, and we'd like to do more of that.
Absolutely. And that just increases the investor confidence, right? Once you have that in place, you need to have whatever you're working, whatever you're putting in your time and money, that needs to be protected in the
predictability, consistency, and steady forward progress. I think on the policy front, I think that's what will be critical.
Absolutely. I think very broadly, we are done. Jagruti.
Thank you, Pranav. Thank you, Sanjay. It was a very insightful chat, and I'm sure people have a lot to take from how India has evolved over the years and what opportunities we see coming in the future. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. My pleasure. Anybody sitting on the fence wondering if you should jump in, there is no better time than today right now.
Thank you.
See you.
Moving on to the next segment of our webinar, we have a panel discussion with
recording in progress.
With my colleague Kynat being the moderator on India, a powerhouse for tech and innovation for global startup ecosystem. I'll let Kynat move on. Kynat, sorry, you're on mute.
All right. Sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I'm Kynat from Startup Réseau. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone present here in the audience, mostly people from across the globe, for joining us for this webinar. Very warm welcome to our panelists here. I think we are facing some difficulty with some technical glitches, and we're expecting 2 more panelists to be joining in. But before that, I think what we can do is, we can get started with a quick introduction of Beka, Adam, and Nidhi. And I will maybe Adam, we can start with you. If you can take a minute or two to quickly introduce yourselves to the audience present here.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Kynat. CEO of a company called Asset Direct, and we are a global marketplace for financial products and services based out of Canada, where we operate a leading platform that connects consumers with alternate personal loans. We now expanded into India, heading into Kenya, as well as into the US. Myself, traveled probably somewhere over 40 different countries, spent some good time living overseas in China, started 2 businesses over there. Excited about what's going on in India. It's just an absolute incredible opportunity today and just happy to be part of it. So thank you.
Right. Thank you, Kynat, and it's a pleasure to be here as part of this panel discussion today. So myself, I'm part of SGGSC, which is Societe Generale Global Solution Center. This is a GCC of a bank headquartered in France, Paris. So within SGGSC or SocGen, as we call it, I am the VP for Head Technology Capability Hub. So my mandate is specializing in delivering high business value through innovation and digital processes, developing organization practice, so basically center of excellence for emerging technologies like blockchain, digital reality, and so on, and generative AI. And I specialize in pre-sales and delivery management of large complex programs. So I call myself an innovation pragmatist. I deeply am aligned to all the innovation stories, but I also would like to, see how well we can deploy them in banks and financial industries like ourselves. And of course, I'm a great tech enthusiast of all the techs that I mentioned before. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me here. Hello, everybody. So I'm Beka. I'm CEO of a company called Kernel, and we are on a mission to empower growth of small businesses in the global South, generally, by helping those over 200 million businesses to digitize and be on the forefront of this digitization, because we believe that this is one of the areas that's going to drive the development of the global economy generally. So we started out in Georgia, then expanded in Philippines, have quite good presence there. And about 18 months ago, we expanded to India. What we do in India is we help small legacy traditional businesses to comply with the upcoming GST requirements through, of course, mobile first application. I've relocated to India in January this year and spending around 80% of my time there. Currently, I'm in Georgia, but usually I'm in India. And when I'm not, in those times, my co-founders spend all the time there. So yeah, that's shortly about myself.
Thank you everyone for this introduction. So let's get into the panel discussion. I think to begin with, given the topic of the panel discussion, I have a couple of opening questions that I'm hoping can be addressed by all of you, right? So to begin with, we know that India has been one of the key players when it comes to global tech ecosystem. In the last 3 years itself, we have seen so much of action happening, right? As on today, how do you see the role of India evolving in the next few years? So we can probably have Beka address this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thanks for the question. I'm pretty excited when question comes about the future of India, because I'm a huge believer. I believe generally that the West has already seen most of the growth on traditional economy side, and the main value, the biggest opportunities of our lives are going to arise in the global South, especially in India. So that's just to give the perspective. In terms of India's future, one of the things that makes me really excited is India Stack. I think that's an amazing job that's been done. UPI is by far the best peer-to-peer transaction method I've seen anywhere around the world. I've been able to literally help a beggar in Mumbai with a QR code, which was like something that I kind of crossed from my bucket list because that was, really, really amazing. And I see that evolving real fast. And ONDC, I believe, it will be contributing, and it might be even bigger than UPI because this will allow the India to become the entirely digital and democratic economy, basically. And I think that technology is evolving around those frameworks gonna define a lot in other countries. I believe that UPI is also going to be one of the major exports of India for the next decades, as well as the frameworks that will be designed by ONDC. So huge pool of talent. It's really hard to find the right people generally, that's one of the issues, especially for a foreigner. But generally, the huge pool of talent, and I see that the most talented people who have education in the US, top universities, or graduating for IIT Bombay or whatever, they prefer to stay in India nowadays and build for India, and they realize that this is where the opportunity lies. So this is what makes me most bullish about the generally Indian economy, especially on the innovation and tech side. And I believe that within the next probably 5 to 10 years, India is going to be the absolute leader in terms of tech innovation around the world.
Nidhi, would you like to add this as well? Your view?
So thanks, Kainath. And of course, I agree with all the points Beka said. In fact, India's stack was one of the examples I had. But yeah, I mean, it's a wonderful example, right? You can't say enough about it. But I think what it shows is the kind of mindset behind India and the growth mindset that we are having here. The ability to make for world in India. And that's what I think the UPI story or the ONDC story is showing. From a GCC perspective, I think what I feel now happening is that more and more research and development labs could also be centered in India, which means that we were always ahead, in terms of the talent force or the engineering mind growth that we had. We had a lot of young people who are skilled in these things. So it was delivery excellence was something that we were showing. But now I think the next step is to create those kind of advisory arms from India, where we can identify that what is the next tech that will become big. So we are not just, maybe being on the delivery side, but also in the transformation side. And we are able to advise our global stakeholders that what is the tech that they should be investing, the right time with the right focus, and also having this differentiation between what tech is trendy versus a trend. So I think that is the kind of new value impact that we can create from India.
All right, thank you. So I think going deeper into what Nidhi has just said, right? Given that India's diverse market provides, a great testing ground for startups, whether it's international or domestic ones, to scale and adapt their products, right? So how has this aspect of the Indian market influenced the global stakeholders' perception of India as a fertile ground for tech and innovation? So probably this is what Nidhi was just addressing. And Nidhi, if you wish to continue, you can, or else I'll with Adam and Beka to add as well.
I think I would no. I think it's what I just said. That if I have to add one thing is I'll say that given our market share, given the consumer-driven economy that we have today, it's no wonder that we are attracting global stakeholders to come and experiment with us. And the fact that we have a frugal innovation mindset, again, like I said about the growth mindset, kinds of adds to the story that we are building from India. So yeah, I mean, I think from the perspective of our recipe today in India, we have the talent, we have the mindset, we have the leadership, and we have the maturity. So it's a good combination. I'm not surprised that it is attracting the kind of investments that we are seeing today.
All right.
So yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
Happy to dig in and comment on that. I mean, I think when I first came to India, they told me if you can do it in India, you can do it anywhere. So it's been absolutely, it was our first choice for expanding globally. I think part of the issue was in Canada, the regulator is very behind in terms of working on open banking, which is a big aspect of our business. Very, very difficult to get integrations done with partners. You know, a lot of time and effort to try to make our product work in Canada, but it just wasn't ready for it. India, I mean, with India Stack, as well as kind of what's being developed, I think it's incredible. I think that the guys who are doing iSpirit, like they took, I think, a 20 or 30-year view of the future of India. Where do we want India to be in 20 or 30 years? And then they worked back from that and came up with different things that needed to happen in order to get to that point, which I think is incredible. You know, and so they were able to develop all this stuff. And one thing for us is one standard API being developed that allows us to connect into all financial institutions. So in Canada, we have this platform that allows consumers to connect with lenders, but each lender we have to integrate specifically with the API or the integration parameters that are developed by that lender. What's being developed in India is a common API that allows us to plug into all banks and NBFCs and financial institutions. So makes our life a lot easier. Also, the regulator is very, very forward thinking when it comes to open banking, whereas in Canada, it's just, I mean, there's been no real evolution over the course of a number of years. So for us, I mean, you know, the size of market, the fact that India is a democracy, huge. The language of business is English, right? When I was doing business in China, it was all in Chinese. You know, very, very open in terms of being able to do business in the country. I think, you know, the government is very welcoming to foreign companies at this point. And, you know, I think, you know, the 1.3 billion people is also a big piece that's attractive, although, you know, a certain subset of that are more, you know, obviously targeted for us in terms of, you know, unit economics, et cetera. There's an absolutely amazing opportunity within that group. And so, you know, all of these things together, you know, made India the perfect ground for us to really trial and develop our products. And, you know, what we're doing is we're building something that's global. We're just using India as the launch pad for it.
Thank you, Nidhi and Adam. I think Beka, I will address the next question to you, and it's the same as what Adam touched base upon already. We have multiple founders, international founders in the audience here who are looking to explore the Indian market, right? As a founder yourself who is successfully building an India-focused tech business, can you throw some light on your journey about what motivated you to launch your company in India?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. So I think apart from why India, I think why now was a very important aspect for us, because basically what we've been building globally has been this bridge between business and where that's accounting, where that's tax authorities. So on the basically accounting and tax filing side. And in India, we see that, like, I truly believe that India is on a fast track to becoming the next global superpower, and it's going to happen much faster than anybody anticipates. But to do that, it's absolutely necessary to do investments in education, infrastructure, healthcare, etc. And to do that, the government needs to be able to collect taxes. There's no other way to finance those kinds of investments. And they need to collect taxes, indirect taxes, which is GST. And we've seen a lot of great steps taken since the demonetization in order to bring the kind of gray economy to light. And because we work with these small merchants, small businesses, and India has, I think it's over 70 million with the last information I've got, that will need to start complying within very, very short period of time. So we saw that the problem was really burning for those small guys, and we decided that it was falling in line with our mission generally. Apart from that, I would say, of course, like the size is amazing. The size and the scale of the Indian market, for us, it's the biggest market in the world. But again, you need to be the right amount of pagal and jugar, as they taught me in India, in order to come to this country from outside and start figuring out things. Because for any international business coming to India, you need to adapt to the local culture and the way things are done. And nothing works by the book. Like all the books that have been written, like all the, whether that's marketing or sales or whatever, it's on the standard of the West, which went through different process. Technology is kind of a legacy for people and businesses in the West, in the UK or US, while in India, it's been developed in a sense like a startup. All the tech is developed based on the requirements for the end customers of the, whether that's consumers, whether that's small businesses. So the opportunities that are arising here are immense, but it's pretty challenging market. Also for Indians, especially for the foreigners. And I believe that there is no way to do business in India from outside if you don't spend significant time in understanding the culture and the mindset of the people and of the market generally. So yeah.
Thank you, Beka. I will just quickly pause here to welcome Ashish to the panel. We had some technical glitches. Thank you so much, Ashish, for joining in. Ashish is the head technology innovation group function at Standard Chartered. Ashish, we are just midway through the session, but glad you could join in. We still have a few questions kept for you. We will address that. Also for the audience, we will be happy to take in, the panelists here will be happy to take in probably a couple of questions after we are done with the discussion here. So in case you have any questions, you can use the Q&A box or the chat box in the Q&A box in your windows to send in those questions, and we will address them towards the end. Okay, thank you. All right, so I will probably just going back to Beka and Adam again as international founders. I think Adam and Beka, both of you addressed a few things here, but did you have to adapt your business model to cater to the Indian audience in a certain way? And if yes, how did you go about it while maintaining a global perspective? And or in fact, for that matter, any specific challenges that you faced during your initial phases in India?
So of course, I think as a founder of a startup, you need to be able to be agile and develop your products so that it fits people, regardless of where you are in the world, right? If you want to be successful, you need to be able to understand your target market and what they want. And the product that we have in Canada is somewhat different than what we have in India for that matter. And I mean, you see the same thing. I mean, I walk into any mall and I see a KFC or a McDonald's or, some other brand that's there in India, and the food is different. Right? You still have the presence of that brand, but what's available in that restaurant is different. And so I think it's super important for you to really understand what your target demo is and adapt so that you can fit them. And, that's one of the things in the early startup days is, as you're trying to find product market fit, you're doing these adaptations. The struggle is you've hit it in your home country and you're really doing well here, but you're overseas and you think the same thing might be able to apply. And I mean, it could, but for us, it had to adapt. So just to clarify, our product basically is a marketplace that connects consumers with alternative lenders. On one end, we have a network of affiliates, partners that drive traffic into the platform. On the other side, we have integrations with 30 different financial product providers across India. And in Canada, our traffic is driven by essentially large-scale affiliates. So it would be I don't know if people may know Credit Karma, which is one of the world's largest free credit score platforms. In Canada, we're powering a good chunk of Credit Karma's infrastructure. So they refer their traffic through us. We optimize that traffic. We convert with a lender, and then we revenue share upstream. And that's really the model. Large scale affiliates driving large volume traffic all into an infrastructure that we optimize to create commission and revenue for the affiliate itself. And in India, we had to adapt that from large scale platforms all the way down to individuals. And now we're employing a network of over 100,000 agents across India. And these agents are building businesses through us. So instead of a large scale affiliate driving huge amounts of traffic, we have corner stores, Kendras, et cetera, all basically referring traffic through a stand with a QR code on it. So this QR code sits at the cash desk of that storefront. The customer can scan with their camera app. It's not a payment QR. They scan that, the consumer ends up in our infrastructure, we optimize and convert. The reason why we had to do this differently, in India, the way a lot of these large scale affiliates work is very different. Basically, the way they generate revenue is not how we standard, would kind of generate that revenue for the partner in Canada. And we could not offer an attractive enough opportunity for them to drive traffic. So we came into the market, we said, we need to do this. We can do this, it's great. And we realized that just that way of generating traffic wasn't available to us. So So now basically we've got this network of stores all driving traffic. Each store has become an agent. And instead of just a one and done commission, the agent refers traffic and we build a book of business for them. So you go to the Corona shop, they've got the QR code there, the customer scans it, they end up in our infrastructure. We sell them loans, insurance, credit cards, etc. But we leave that lead tag to them. So as they refer more traffic in, that base gets larger and larger. And as we continue to monetize that base through various products and services, we revenue share upstream at the corner store. So as they refer in hundreds of different people, those hundreds of people stay tagged. We continue to mine those leads for conversions in various products, and then we allow that corner store to basically build ancillary revenue. And the idea here is over the course of years, they build a larger and larger book, and that check becomes more and more meaningful. And we also give them an opportunity to generate income off that book in retirement. So essentially, if they refer for enough years, that book would generate income for them post when they stop referring the traffic. So a bit of a different experience. The other piece for us is also we're looking to develop a bank. And so we want to put a bank account at the center of this infrastructure. So you have an account surrounded by a universe of products. And we just couldn't do that in North America because open banking wouldn't allow it. Anyways, I've talked too much. I'll try to be quiet now and allow Beka to speak.
Thank you so much, Adam. Yes, Beka.
Yeah, that's amazing. A great example of how you need to change the mindset also when going into Indian market from any market from outside. Like just to underline like one issue, for example, of course, we had to adapt the product. Of course, we had to adapt even the design, even the user flows, even the ways how we acquire the users or acquire the leads. But for example, what we've noticed, especially in our business and not just us, like also in global competition, you usually bring in the users, convert them through user flows digitally without any human touch. You just provide customer support and that works just fine. What we noticed in India for a end user and customer to buy a product, they need a human touch. So they need a person to call them. And even though, for example, give a demo, and if he pre-records this demo, you can make a really high quality demo, but people don't want that. People want to get the salesperson on the call, talk to them, chat to them, and help them convert. So this basically, for us, that's basically made very different unit economics. So we needed to figure out a different go-to-market strategy altogether, because acquiring kind of cold users and then converting them to also have like human-heavy kind of resource to convert them, that didn't make sense in the unit economics side. So that was not a business you can expand to a certain point but cannot sell. So that was one of the challenges that we've solved, and we're still solving for parts of that, but we had to essentially change the go-to-market strategy compared to the other markets that we've seen. That's one. And in terms of the biggest challenge, of course, like initially, the biggest challenge is really understanding the culture, and there needs to be, you need to get to the founder market fit and product market fit as well. Product culture fit is another issue. So you need to do few extra big steps to be successful in the market. I would say one of the biggest challenges in the early days has been building trust, because again, India culturally is a trust-based economy, and being an outsider, you need much more time to build this trust within, whether that's ecosystem, whether that's investors, partners, customers. You generally need a lot of time. Being a foreigner doesn't help in that regards, even though people love to interact and talk to you. Like the trust levels you need to build up. And the only solution for that is being patient and building up for that. So that's actually what we did.
So I could speak really for 20 minutes on this, but I'll very quickly, I agree with Beka. The human touch was super important to us. And so if I rewind quickly back to large scale affiliates driving traffic in Canada, there's no human touch. But at the corner store, we now have the trust of the shop owner, the guy who manages the Chandra, et cetera, right? And in many cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities, these guys can be the pillar of the community. So when you're selling financial products to these guys in tier 2, tier 3 cities, we utilize the trust or the relationship between that store owner and the tenant, the person that's visiting that store and that may have visited that store since they were a kid. So we use this offline channel to direct online and to drive that trust into an online journey, which may not exist if they were strictly driven through an online flow.
Thank you, Adam and Beka. I'm sure this was extremely helpful to the international founders, present here in the audience. We'll move on to probably Nidhi and Ashish to throw in some of their perspective from a GCC point of view, right? Ashish, we have been talking that, how India is a fertile ground for tech and innovation globally. Maybe if you can tell us as to what specific sectors or areas of innovation do you see thriving in India?
Okay, absolutely, Kainat, and thank you so much. Thanks to Ajay and Anshul, I think, to the entire team that you guys have been organizing this. Very fantastic, and I think always good to share the inputs. And this is a very close subject to me because the reason that I run in the open innovation arm, which is there for Standard Chartered Bank as well. I connect definitely with a lot of CEOs, CXOs like Beka and Adam. And that happens on a day-to-day basis. And that's the reason I was quite interested to join this platform and to understand where is India heading. Now let's look into some numbers right now, right, as to where are we there in India. And the reason is because I have a strong team sitting in India. I'm based out of Singapore, so I think, yes, I connect with India almost on a daily basis. I have teams in China, I have teams in Malaysia, but India, I really work closely, but looking into some of the numericals that have been going around. 55% GDP obviously has been contributed over there from India, which is there from the economies that have been running around. NPAs, if I look at it, right, non-performing assets, and I'm the banking guy, so I think I'm going to talk in these numbers because these numbers play a very vital role for me to decide. I should dip my hands into it, I should stay away from this, so I should really work on that side. So if I look into the NPAs, I think 2022, post the COVID, I think this has been 7-year low throughout in India, right? If I look into the kind of a micro, small, and medium enterprises for India, I think it's 30% of the GDP, and we look at a shortfall supply, which is a credit, which is estimated at around $250 to $300 billion, right, overall. GDP growth, 16%. The ratio is significantly, definitely lower than the larger economies altogether. So all these numbers simply prove that that's the place to be. That's a place there where we really need to go ahead and invest in. That's a place to really make that happen. Have kind of an ecosystem which can really contribute to this side. Now, as a GCC, yes, absolutely. I think I would rather say that it does play a vital role to have a GCC and make sure that finds utilize the capabilities that are there in the major 4 biggies of India, which is they're contributing to the startup and the fintech communities. And obviously, Bangalore remains one of them, Hyderabad, Thiruvananthapuram, and other locations also are the part of it. Few of the things that I am looking at, look at the stuff that has been coming in and which got really viral during the time of the pandemic. I mean, the world forcibly became digital, and this forcible digital became the part of the future for us now. Now, everybody posts that pandemic as well has been trying to go ahead and just run in the same way because they have seen the comfort in that. They have seen the way that all the UPIs have gone through, how the UPIs have transacted, and how we can make the payments downstairs. Now, we are making a lot of stuff within our side into metaverse journey. We are doing a lot of stuff which has been there into different IoT devices. We are trying to go ahead and make in how the banking can be enabled via that. And that's the future. And that's where we are trying to go ahead and handshake with some of the partners, especially on the neobank side, especially on the partnerships that we are doing with other sectors, making how lending fruitful, how can we go ahead and just ensure the security measures that we are trying to work on, how can that be enabled, especially on the side of community banking, especially in the times of the social banking, the middle banking that we have been talking about. I think these things have been very, very relevant over there. And India definitely has a huge role to play, especially in these technologies throughout. Education sector is something I think really growing. EdTech, I think really growing fast on that side. A couple of players have been really doing well. I think there have been some shaky sides as well on that side. So I think we really need to go ahead and manage that on this. Finance Minister bringing in e-rupee and the CBDCs, which is around, which is the central bank digital currency. I think a huge role to play on this. And I think that's going to transform a lot in the way that the economy is going to grow from here. Quite a game changer. I think that's going to go ahead and open a new doors for the way the DeFis and the DAOs and others of the world is going to plug in. How NFTs can find a place and sneak into this entire world of non-fungible tokens. I think that's also a big element to be brought about. So yeah, it's a huge. I can talk to it about this for hours and hours, and that's what I do. But yeah, I mean, has been a fantastic. I think I would say that the chapters that's going to start. as the government call is, right, Amrit Kal. That's what I heard in a lot of newspapers. I think that's what I can think, and I think it's going to be rightly called like that. Yeah.
Thank you, Ashish. Nidhi, if you have anything to add here?
No, I think Ashish has said it all. Maybe I'll just like to add just two things here that if I look at the next exciting chapter for India in terms of tech innovation, I think it would be deep tech, especially the work that is now starting on chips and on quantum research. I think we are starting and there is a long way to go. And I would also say the second thing is about driving hyper personalization with heightened privacy. We are going towards a consumer driven economy, but and of course we would love to have personalized view, but at the same time today we would like to have the privacy also being met, privacy regulations also being met. So yeah, in my views, these are also two places where we would see some exciting innovations coming.
Right. Thanks, Nidhi. I think I'll move on and probably ask you to maybe give us an example of how your company leveraged India's tech and innovation ecosystem to drive some kind of product development and innovation. If you can give some example, that will be useful to the audience.
Sure. So at SDGSC, we believe that innovation is constant. It's something that we have to invest dedicated time and resources, which means we have a top-down and a bottoms-up approach to making innovation happen. One of the ways in which we have worked very closely with the startup community is through our accelerator program. We have had 7 editions of this program where we have worked with several hundred startups across multiple business use cases. The benefit for us is that we get to work with startups who are agile, nimble, entrepreneurship, time to market is reduced. We see the exciting tech and the implementation of the tech on the business problem. At the same time, the startups who work with us understand how it is to deploy a solution in a legacy framework, which is usually what banking is all about, and also the domain expertise it is needed. So I think the relationship here becomes very symbiotic, and which has led to, like I said, the numbers before, 7+ editions of this Catalyst Accelerator. What it also led to is that it also led to internal startup calls within our own organization. A lot of people got quite impressed, and we had some internal startup calls, and around 6 startups were identified from the employees themselves. So that was very neat way of, like I said, a very nice symbiotic relationship that we had with the startup community. We also try to work closely with academia. I think this is interesting. We work with the IITs and the management schools, a few of them, because we believe that a lot of good primary research is also happening with the student community, which can help the developer community. So this enables us to tie in a problem statement, assess the problem statement in the context of the India setup, assess the way what it would take to productionize that particular tech to a business problem within a banking organization. So I think all in all, with the various multi-lever approach that we have taken in our relationship with the innovation ecosystem, we have had some pretty amazing results and good stories.
Thank you, Nidhi. Ashish, if you have any examples to share, or else we'll move on.
Yeah, a lot, kind of, and I can talk about it for hours, but as I said, but you see a few prominent ones. Like, let's look at what is the current customer base or any of the client base is looking forward to. They're looking for easy banking. They're looking for easy access to all the stuff that they can do to make the life simple. Easy e-com, right? Easy accessibility to make sure that the hiccups are less. And I think they want, and as I said, I mean, post the COVID, I think that has already really transformed the way that things have been looked upon. And in fact, we ourselves, right, look at it as to how we were dealing it pre-2019 and post-23, how we are trying to go ahead and perceive the things. That's being drastically changed. So I agree with Nidhi. I think quantum has been really picking up quite fast. So I'm looking at the quantum mechanics, and there's been a lot of work that has been going on to simplify all across the globe as well. And I think from our side, we are also not behind on that. And there's been a lot of stuff which has been going in, especially to transform the journeys and making sure that wealth management and things like that have been well simplified. A lot of things that has been going on, especially on making sure that the current boom on LinkedIn's that have been going on, especially on the LLMs and the GPTs and all that, is that a real bubble or is that really going to go ahead and blow up? That's something that we have been trying to explore within our prototypes and within our work that we have been going. I think it will take some time to stabilize. I am not sure whether the market is ripe and whether the market is ready for that kind of a stability to bring in and launch in the products right away, considering responsible AI is the motto right now. And yes, this is going to evolve a lot. We are looking forward to that. The biggies of the world, especially the Microsofts and the Googles, bringing in vectors and bringing in bards into the world, that's going to make it a little aggressive. And as a banks like us, we definitely want to go ahead and watch about this first. We really want to go ahead and just evaluate the situation and see where would this really go ahead and support our clients, our staff, and overall as a bank. Being a bank which is placed out in 52 plus countries and with a strong customer base and a strong profitable kind of a statement that we have, we want to make sure that something that has been right and that's been rightly being called for. And this is where I think our placement will be. But technologically, I think a lot that has been going on into our space. And we welcome all the partners, we welcome all the fintechs and other supporters who are there. Join hands with us. I think we're a bank who always welcome the new technology. We're always the one who appreciate that. We have Friday FinTech forums that happens almost every Friday, where we call in all the partners to come in and address all the managing directors, CXOs of the bank, where they need to pitch in their products. They can really give the demos for that. Open house cohort that happens, so they can join hands with us and showcase these capabilities. So huge opportunity. And that's the reason I really welcome partners based out of India, fintech startups based out of India, and I think at other locations. Very happy to discuss and talk about it.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashish. I did have a couple of questions, more questions for you all, but I believe we are already way past our end time. So with this, I'm going to wrap up this panel. Thank you so much, Beka, Adam, Nidhi, and Ashish for joining in. I'm sure this was insightful to the audience here. And hi. And with this, we will wrap it up. And Anshul, over to you to take this forward.
Thanks, Kainath, and thank you everyone for joining in. Moving on, before we move on to the last panel of today's webinar, I'd like to announce and take this opportunity to announce two new initiatives that we at Startup Réseau are launching. One is a virtual India market access program in partnership with Surge Summit, and the other one is the Gateway 91 India Immersion Program. And Ajay will tell us more about it. But before that, I'd like to invite Deep Asaf from Surge to tell us a little bit more about the Surge Summit and the initiatives that they are also taking. Over to you, Deep.
Hello, can you hear me? Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, so my name is Deep. I'm one of the organizers of Surge Summit. Surge Summit is a technology event that will be held in Tbilisi, Georgia, from the 5th until the 7th of September. We are bringing together startups, investors, and ecosystem shareholders, that is including the support programs, hubs, and accelerators. We have three main goals out of this. First of all, for startups, we want to give a platform for them to network, and of course, for a chance to get investment money for their startup. Secondly, for the support programs, that mainly is hubs, regional hubs. We want them to connect, to collaborate in the region to further accelerate the startup journey here. And the third one, which is where it comes into partnership with Startup Réseau, is connecting the startups from this region, East Europe, Central Asia, and the Caucasus, with support programs, accelerator programs. And that's why our partnership with Startup Réseau comes into play here. As we all heard in the webinar, India is such an amazing market to emerge now, and that's where Gateway 91 Surge Summit edition is here for.
Thanks, Dave, for that introduction and overview on the Surge Summit. I'd now invite Ajay to tell us a little bit more about the Gateway 91 program that we are doing. Over to you, Ajay.
Sure. Thanks, Anshul, and thanks everyone who is tuned in live for this webinar. I'm sure that the panelists and speakers who spoke before, they kind of resonated as to why India and the $5 trillion opportunity that we're talking about makes a lot of sense for international companies who are looking at India as a market or India as a market opportunity. I'll quickly walk you through a deck which talks about Gateway 91 as a flagship program that we have been operating at Startup Réseau. We firmly believe that as an organization, the way we are positioned, we don't see ourselves just as an accelerator. We see ourselves more as a pacer, as an enabler. And in that context, companies, when they're looking to grow, I think opportunities or potential that exists in international markets, that's something that we want to bring to the fore. And we do this through structured market access programs, both offline and online. Gateway 91 is our own version of an India market access program. During COVID, we launched it in a virtual avatar, but we have managed to bring it back to an offline form earlier this year as a multi-city program. And the whole objective of Gateway 91 is to provide an exposure or an immersion into the India innovation and technology landscape. So all that you heard right at the Fireside chat, the panel discussion, and the conversation that I'm going to have with a couple of government stakeholders, it's all about showing perspective about the India market opportunity coming from different lenses, coming from different quarters. And this converts into an offline program which you're hosting in the month of October. So Anshul, if you can just pull up the deck, that would be handy. Great. So like I said, Gateway 91 is a market immersion program, India immersion program to experience the innovation ecosystem. Anshul, I can keep moving the slides as I complete the portion, right? Go on to the next one. We have heard about the India market opportunity, and this has come largely from operators, from investors, a couple of founders who have successfully kind of built businesses which is not built in India but built for India. And when you see someone relocating and building in the market, it definitely shows that the opportunity has been kind of vetted and it's a big one to go after. If you look at Gateway 91 as a program, it's not a startup program. Gateway 91 as a program is curated or built focusing on anyone, whether you are a scale up, whether you're a startup, whether you're an investor trying to understand what the India market opportunity looks like, whether you're a researcher from a university or a center of excellence, whether you're a government stakeholder. It's about providing an overview and an in-depth kind of understanding of what the innovation and technology landscape looks like. And that's why it has been designed as an immersive program where you're going to be visiting different stakeholders who bring their angle or their perspective of innovation and technology and what they're doing. And that's why whether you look at it from an investor's perspective, a government's perspective, startup perspective, unicorns, large corporates which are running their innovation centers, visiting and getting to meet with these stakeholders is what Gateway 91 as a program is all about. Actually, we can go on to the next one. So like I said, I mean, the program itself is designed in such a format that the ones who we expect would apply to a program like this. It could be founders who are looking to understand what the India market opportunity looks like, or how a company has built and scaled in India. And doesn't matter whether the founder is looking to build for India. I think if you go back a decade, when you had startups coming up through the ranks, the examples would be an Uber of X or an Uber of Y. Today, I mean, given that we are fortunate to be operating programs in several emerging markets, I mean, we talk, I mean, when we go to meet founders, whether in South and Southeast Asia, Africa, and markets like that, they talk of Misho of X or Cred of Y and so on. So there is a very strong reference point that a lot of founders have in emerging markets. So Gateway 91 as a program is for startup founders who are looking to try and understand how do you build for scale. And there could be no better place than coming to India and understanding and learning how do you build for scale. Likewise, meeting with corporate executives, industry executives who are running innovation as a function within their organization, and how are they innovating? How are they kind of getting onto the digital bandwagon? Getting to meet with centers of excellence, innovation hubs, so that you get a perspective coming from industry, because they are your takers, they are your customers, they are your partners. Getting to meet with government representatives. I mean, I'm going to get onto a chat with Rahul and Siddharth, and it's going to be an interesting one, because unlike several markets where government is seen more as a policy maker or an enforcer, In India, one thing which has happened uniquely is that government is also investing heavily in building the technology backbone and technology infrastructure. And for a lot of stakeholders, getting to see and hear that firsthand and try to see where those opportunities lie within frameworks and within infrastructure that government has built is also a massive learning. Ecosystem enablers, whether someone is running incubators, accelerators, government-backed initiatives, I think getting to meet with different enablers also, it kind of becomes a pathway for you to enter India as an opportunity, or to partner with someone who would allow the bilateral kind of exchanges. Investors, again, they bring their own perspective. We started off the webinar today with in a fireside chat with Sanjay. I think investors also, it's important to get to meet with not only the investors, but also get to understand their thesis, the kind of companies that they have been backing, getting to meet with some of the portfolio companies. And lastly, I mean, university. I mean, you can always start a company with 2 people, but very soon you're going to probably require 20, you're going to require 200. And that's where the university ecosystem or the talent ecosystem has a huge role to play. So Gateway 91 as a program packs in a lot of things and the different stakeholders. We do 2 editions or 2 versions of it. The one in Feb is more like a 10-day program. This one in October is a shorter one. It's a 5-day program. But at the same time, multiple cities, multiple stakeholders, so that you get a real holistic view of what the technology and innovation landscape in India looks like. And coming from the different aspects, whether it is an investor aspect, whether it's a talent aspect, whether it's a local ecosystem aspect, whether it's an enterprise aspect, you get all of that covered. So we can go to the next one. And the way the program is structured, it's not a one size fits all in by any means, even the kind of interactions. So while you have the industry visits and one-on-one interactions, you'll also have probably sidebar events, which are more like roundtables, which are probably like networking events and so on. So different formats of interaction with different organizations, so that the week that you spend here, your exposure is maximized. Again, program takeaways, I think I've already spoken about it. I mean, if you're a founder or a business owner, you obviously come with a certain set of expectations, and it's more business, or it's more to kind of form those partnerships and collaborations, or probably take back how do you build for scale. If you're more of an ecosystem enabler, you come from economic development background, you come from university, or you're a government representative, the kind of expectations that you would come with, or the kind of takeaways that you would want, would be slightly different. But at the same time, the program is designed in such a way that all of the interactions that are packaged in are keeping in mind the different or the diversity of stakeholders that we expect to join Gateway 91 as a program. We can move on to the next one. These are testimonials. I mean, people always have good things to say. So next one. Yeah. So Anshul, I think you can pull off the deck. So it's basically, I mean, a very quick snapshot or an overview. Whoever signed up for the webinar today, you're definitely going to be getting a shout out from Kainat, Anshul, or someone from the team, where the deck will be shared, and you'll have more details about Gateway 91 as a program, the dates, and all of those details. But the webinar is more to kind of give you deeper insights. I mean, to advocate or to talk to audiences outside of India, to talk about the India market opportunity, and how programs like Gateway 91 and different stakeholders that we're able to bring together makes your access to India or a segue into India much easier. So thank you for that. We can now jump on to the panel discussion. I'd like to invite Rahul Handa from ONDC and Siddharth Anand from KDEM to join me. Hey, Siddharth.
Hello, good evening. Hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Oh, great.
Awesome. Before we jump into the questions, I mean, the topic is government as a catalyst for technological disruption and innovation, and I briefly spoke about it as to how government in India, whether you look at it from a center standpoint or different state governments as well, there are so many initiatives where it's not just about policy and framework, but government has been at the forefront of actually doing things. If you can both quickly introduce yourself, maybe we can start with you, Rahul, and then go on to you, Siddharth, and then I can jump on to some questions.
Sure. Hi, guys. My name is Rahul Handa. I am the Executive Vice President with ONDC, and I head up something called Strategic Initiatives inside of ONDC. Basically, my unit takes care of everything from payments and settlements to issue and grievances to making sure that how will we define out things like cataloging to the taxonomy structures, etc., etc. So my unit is the one which defines out all of these different products, as well as I take care of the finance and the healthcare segments at ONDC also.
Great, thank you. Siddharth?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Siddharth. I'm Vice President at Karnataka Digital Economy Mission. This is an initiative by Government of Karnataka, particularly, but led by the industry through partnership of various industry associations. I lead the global partnership and startup innovation vertical at KDM. Three basic problems that we solve are access to capital, mentorship, and networking. We partner with, and of course, cross-border facilitation, where we handhold and ensure soft landing of foreign startups in Karnataka, particularly in Bangalore, is our key motives. We work in the digital economy segment of the economy, ensuring that the share of digital economy to the state GSDP that increases every year. There are other initiatives also that we work on. One of them is Beyond Bangalore, is to ensure that we create new growth centers out of the capital city of the states. That's when we are developing new emerging clusters such as Mysore, Mangalore, and Hubli, Belgaum. We're very happy to sort of be here and answer to any queries that participants might have. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Siddharth. Thanks, Rahul. Rahul, I'll go to you first. I mean, e-commerce is not new. It's more than or close to a couple of decades old, and it has had its own iterations. I mean, when we talk of digital payments, we keep talking about the UPI and the kind of impact it has had. But when we look at ONDC, I mean, it's fairly new, but it's touted to be something which can be much bigger than how or where UPI has disrupted digital payments or financial inclusion. Now, given that ONDC is a Government of India initiative, how do you think initiatives like ONDC or programs like ONDC, whichever way you look at it, is fostering an environment which is conducive to technological disruption and innovation by building on top, providing the framework and building on top of it?
So Ajay, it's a very, very interesting question, right? So you're absolutely right. We as ONDC are a Section 8, so which is non-for-profit organizations, which is a Government of India initiative under DPIIT, Ministry of Commerce and Industry. We are here to democratize commerce. What that basically means is that we are not here to kill any of the existing platforms, but because of the way that whatever we are doing, we are unbundling and creating an interoperable unit. If you look at the UPI component to it, they are basically moving an SKU of one, right? We have to basically move as well as have returns and cancellations, etc., etc. We have to account for all of that for millions of SKUs plus one, which is money. So when I look at that as a overall construct, right? The major problem that happens is that for all the people on the call, etc., we're all very used to e-commerce, but the problem statement is exactly that. All of us have been conditioned into thinking about e-commerce a certain way, which is very, very platform centric, and everything that needs to be done within the platform, by the platform, so that the platform is in control, right? Standard things, right? If you have a bunch of sellers on one side of the platform, they have various issues, which is margins, it is terms and conditions, it is disintermediation risk, it is also the fact that you need to be on various platforms so that you will be visible, etc., across the entire thing, which is also adding to a certain amount of OpEx. Now, in the ONDC world, we are looking at it differently, in the sense that, see, the entire e-commerce space in India, for example, is just about what, 6%, 7%? Right, of the total population of India. Yeah. Now, where we want to go down to is, say, about 75% of India, which means that we want to add on another billion people who will be coming in to buy and potentially sell. At the same point in time, if you look at the total number of businesses as a percentage of the total number of businesses online, it's probably about what, 1 to 3%, depending on whichever number you look at. So again, the headway is massive. So where we are looking at it is a very simple, straightforward construct, which is to say that the top 6% of India has gotten used to a certain way of digital commerce, but the rest of it is still surviving, right? They're still out, they're still eating, they're still drinking, they're still clothed, they're still living, etc., etc. Maybe we need to look at it from a slightly different perspective, in the sense that what are the new products and services that would be required to fulfill their needs in the different parts of the city or the country or etc., wherever they're living. At the same point in time, the next part that comes into play is that these different products and services that are being provided need to potentially be looked at, need to be provided at a different price point. Could also be that there is a different mechanism of delivery which comes into play, which means that the digital box that has been put around by the different platforms just needs to be opened out. And we, all of us sitting here as innovators, and all of you who are sitting there as innovators or as entrepreneurs, need to think about it of saying that, what are those different things that I can do to either get more customers onto the network and get them to be transacting, or get more sellers onto the network so that they can be more transaction, right? There is nothing which stops you as an innovator or as an entrepreneur to be able to create a new product or a service without actually having to build a market for it, right? So in essence, what ONDC does for you is to say that we are bringing an ecosystem to bear for you. If you have a bunch of sellers to it, guess what? Leave customer acquisition on somebody else. If you have a bunch of customers for a particular product, but you don't have the wherewithal to go and start building another platform by trying to onboard other sellers, so you don't have to do seller acquisition and retention, etc., leave that to the network. So wherever you want to add on products and services from other parts of the eco chain, guess what? ONDC will bring that to you. So that allows you to innovate in that one specific segment that you want to look at. And that segment can be process driven, product driven, can be technology driven, any of those, without you basically having to build an entire eco chain around it. Because guess what? The eco chain will bring to you. You do what you do best.
Great. So on one hand, we have product innovation, which definitely is a way forward to build the economy, and several points that Rahul covered as well. And on the other hand, we have Siddharth, from a program standpoint, the kind of work that KDM is doing, and also earlier hats that you have worn, Siddharth. I mean, if you can elaborate a bit on how the government is actively fostering an environment for bringing about technological disruption and innovation. You can talk about probably some of the programs and sectors that you do at KDM, and also a general perspective on the same.
Absolutely. But Rahul captured it well when he talked about that ONDC actually, and then that's my the line ministry that I is the same that as my previous organization, Invest India. So I get what he's trying to see. They're working on democratization of commerce. But there are multiple aspects to the democratization that is happening along the value chain. I'm currently with the government of Karnataka, where we are also looking at democratization of startups from location perspective. And India being a cooperative federalism, you can see the initiatives that have been undertaken by Government of India in Delhi and several other state governments throughout India. You have Telangana, Government of Telangana doing awesome work in terms of their incubation services. We at Karnataka Digital Economy, we are ensuring that the tyranny of distance, even if you have moved, say 300, 400 kilometers from Bangalore, you would get the same opportunities as a startup operating from Bangalore. So that's something that only an enabler, particularly supported by the government, can bring in. Again, coming to the basic problems that we solve, we're ensuring that our offerings are also sector agnostic. Like if you're deep tech startups, health tech startups, edutech startups, our job is to ensure that dearth of capital in the ecosystem will not come into way of your scaling up and going up. There are several initiatives. And this is what we discussed when you had a delegation, Ajay. You would remember that we were just talking about the policies, incentives, and I've been working in a quasi-government setup since 2012, we all can connect how in EODB also, and DPIT is the line ministry for that. And 2014 in World Bank Ease of Doing Business ranking, we were somewhere in mid 140s, and now there's a lot of work that has been undertaken by both central government and state governments, where ease of doing business, more emphasis has been given to that. And startups, it's far more easier for founders to start an entity and continue doing their business. So again, in several departments under Government of India, if you are an hardware startup, you would have something either by DPIT or your line ministry, such as MITI, Ministry of Electronics and Telecom. If you are a startup based out of Northeast part of India, you would have some sort of incentives or facilitation by Department of Northeast region. And this will be in addition to what the state governments already provide you. So that in my case is one of the most important impetus that has been given by governments, both in state capitals and the national capital.
Very cool. Siddharth, I'll come to the next question to you first. And because you covered, you didn't just speak about KDM and what the great work that you guys are doing in Karnataka, but thanks for giving a broader perspective of how different state governments are doing different things. Coming to international startups or companies that want to set up shop in India or get into the market, where do you see the support and incentives coming in to facilitate such companies entering the market?
So Ajay, I think these supports could be either fiscal or non-fiscal. Through non-fiscal, you would see through Karnataka Digital Economy Mission's channel partners. We have through Global Innovation Alliance, we have a working relationship with German Accelerator. We have through NEPA, through London and Partners, and through your partners as well. So we extend same kind of services that they provide to Karnataka-based startups when they're looking for market access abroad. So the usual services include faster registrations and all the legal paperwork, co-working spaces, credits from organizations. But when we come to fiscal incentives, in addition to what central government provides, state governments also provide a fiscal incentive in terms of R&D expenditure, rental reimbursement, financial support in terms of a fixed investment for investments. There are multiple, and when you're investing into a sector which is a priority sector for Karnataka, you would get additional incentives. If you are a startup for gaming in gaming sector, you would get far lucrative grants and incentives from the state center.
And Rahul, coming to ONDC as a framework, I'm sure that you do keep receiving interest from technology companies who want to either leverage the framework that you built or want to partner in one way or the other. And are you guys open to even international organizations and companies to work with you to integrate in some shape or form?
Absolutely. So see, we have a very straightforward construct, which is that if it transacts, it should be on ONDC, right? So whether somebody's trying to buy toothpaste or 5 kgs of wheat flour, or you're looking to buy a couple of tons of steel, everything should be possible. It also extends for us, because that is what also my team works on, is not only do we look at it from a perspective of an India region, but we've also started working on how do we expand out for exports, right? So somebody sitting in Singapore or somebody sitting in Dubai, etc., should be able to buy a Kanjivaram sari from Kanjipuram also. Or you should be able to buy anything which is from a B2B perspective. Say you want to buy electrical goods and you want to send it towards you want to send it towards Germany. All those different components come into play. Now, what that also means is that we are continuously talking to various startups as well as tech components, where they're saying we want to look at it, whether it is from a simple perspective of saying that we want to become a buyer application outside of India, or we're looking at becoming a seller application or a buyer application within India, or you're also saying that here is a particular product set that I can actually provide to anybody who wants to. So we can become a technology service provider to anybody who wants to be on the ONDC network. Perfect. We are more than happy to do so. If you want to build any kind of an adapter that will take you into some component of ONDC, perfect. If you want to see, since we are part of that transaction only for the search and discovery component. Beyond that is all set up as per protocol, but ONDC is not part of that transaction, right? So once that search is done, then it goes between the buyer application and seller application, which also means that once that transaction has been affected as far as the material flow is happening from the seller app to the buyer application, there is a money flow that also has to take place. So if you have somebody who's saying that I want to become an RSP, which is a recon service provider model, please build those adapters. We are more than happy to put it out there. You decide that, hey, we are also building some kind of an adapter so that we can do issue and grievance management based on the APIs that we've already structured out. Please feel free to do so. Like this, we're also continuously looking at different products and services that would be required on the network, right? If it is for everyone across the network, we will try and APIs it. We'll try and create APIs around it so that people can lock into it. If not, then we have gone to the extent of listing out all the different people where they've started integrating with ONDC also. So even that list is available to you. Please feel free to reach out to them and pitch your services to them. For that, you don't need ONDC, right? ONDC is not a controlling body. We think of us as more like the umpires or the referees of a game. As long as everybody's playing by the club rules, everything is fine, right? And that's the way we are looking at it. So what that means is that if you have a new product or a service, please reach out. My email is very simple. It's just rahul@ondc.org, right? Please reach out. Tell me what you can do. And we are more than happy to look at any of the other products. Just keep in mind that when people say we want an exclusive partnership with ONDC that only I can provide that particular product or service, I will automatically immediately turn around and say, sorry, no. Right? We cannot do that because our logic is very simple. Where we can do something with one person, why do it only with one when there are 10 others who are going to be doing it? Or if we are doing it for 10 people, why can't we do it for 10,000 other people? So we are the market makers in this scenario, which basically means, please come talk to us. We're more than happy to talk to you at any point in time.
And Rahul, if anyone tries to do that, probably they make the open in ONDC to be completely kind of against rules. So, so they should think twice before anyone asks you for any kind of exclusivity. But Rahul, I'll come to my next question to you. I mean, you being an entrepreneur yourself, and what you're doing currently at ONDC is also very entrepreneurial, right? I mean, in terms of building out the framework and bringing in those partnerships. What, according to you, are some of the key policy initiatives or regulatory kind of changes? I mean, startups in India is not a new thing. I mean, even during the dot-com boom and bust of late 90s, early 2000s, you still had startups which went and listed on NASDAQ, NYSE and whatnot. But since 2016, since Startup India came into fore, I think overall as a nation, as a country, if you look at the multiplier of sorts in terms of number of people who are doing startups, the investments pumping in, probably people who want to work in startups and it's not seen as something which is ambiguous or so on, has changed significantly. What, according to you, are some of the policy initiatives or regulatory changes which have happened over the course of last 6-7 years, which have been very instrumental in promoting innovation, not only in India, but also if you look at outside world, looking at India as an innovation center or a product nation? What are some of those things which have made the big changes?
See, it's an ever evolving construct, right? Before we started what we are, by the way, what ONDC is doing, where I have a buyer application which is separated out so that I'm actually, as a customer, I'm coming onto a buyer application that question or that request for that particular product is being sent to the ONDC gateway sending it to various seller applications who have sellers behind them. And everybody is being able to respond back to the buyer application where the customer's journey still stays on that particular buyer application itself, right? This as a construct by itself is extremely unique. It has never been done anywhere else in the world. So from that perspective also, the government and there has been actively working with us also to help us to drive out this entire network effect, right? From everything from as simple as who's going to pay the GST? Okay, where should TDS, TDCS, etc. be deducted and all those things. We have found the government of India to be extremely proactive and extremely fast acting. So wherever we come up with an issue, we go back to our ministry, which it goes out, talks to everybody else. and we get results back in days. Okay. Not weeks, not months. I'm saying in days. So whether we're talking to the regulators for financial products or etc., or we are talking to ministries looking at from taxation, etc. perspective, we get answers back in days. Now that level of innovation that we are looking at, and or the drive within the government also to try and see how they can make those changes so that the little person can also be online, is extremely heartwarming, right? I mean, I'd never ever thought that if you're part of any government of India enterprise, things would work in like as fast as it does. Fantastic speed. Now, that being said, the changes that are happening in policy are not just going to be around taxation. It is going to be around data privacy, etc. And there are things that are already happening. Whether it started after ONDC started off, or the process was already in play and they reached out to us and asked us for our views, etc., is all in play. So whether we're looking at data as data privacy, or we're looking at how money flow needs to take place, and hence there are requirements potentially from that is the innovation that is also happening around what type of accounts need to be created by the different network participants, etc. All of that is working and will continuously keep working on.
Siddharth, if you want to add to that.
So I'll just mention from the state's perspective, Karnataka, and very few people know that even before Government of India came up with Startup India, the state already had its startup policy, and I've been a testament of how the state goes about while promoting a startup or fostering the startup ecosystem. So it's a very holistic view that the state government takes, where not only it focuses on the startups, but also the incubators, all the essential pillars of the startup ecosystem. We have something that is also to ensure that the incubators here in this state, they're also top world class. So we have several programs where incubators here are trained by world class entities across the world. We have initiated last few years the academia, the academic institutions here. They have innovation exchange program. We have a very agile partnership with Israel Innovation Authority. They do this with us, and TDB, Technology Development Board in Government of India. We have a similar arrangement when it comes to startup to startup exchange that happens. So the holistic way that approach that the state takes is something that that is noteworthy when it comes to my state, and probably the only state where we give pure grant to emerging startups at idea stage, at idea to POC level. Elevate, that program is called Elevate, and more than 7 startups have already been benefited. We are also ensuring that in addition to the private venture VC money, the state also actually goes ahead and contributes as an equity contribution to the maturing startup. So these are various initiatives that the state government is taking, and also policy advocacy and grievance handling is something that we as a KDM, as the policy advocacy arm of the digital economy of the state, we take that very seriously, and we do with every essential pillar of the ecosystem. We have several interactions with the investor community, where we even within the investor community, we have something that some separate dialogue going on with the family offices, angel investors, micro VCs, mid VCs, and large VCs. Similarly, if we wanted to have a capacity enhancement program for incubators, or for a medtech startups, or for a circular economy startups, so we would do it in a very well-defined way, so that the larger ecosystem is also benefited.
Great, thanks. Siddharth, actually, you picked up on the last question that I wanted to come to both of you on. Any example? So in case of Rahul, any conversations that you have been having with companies that are building for India, but not necessarily in India, who have managed to kind of start having those conversations, and you see that there is a synergy and they could latch on to whatever you're building as a framework?
So yes, we are talking to multiple companies, be it in Europe or in Singapore, etc. where they are building buyer applications or seller applications, well, primarily buyer applications where they're building for picking up orders from these different countries so that they can be shipped out from an export perspective. Other than that, there are some others who are working on things as simple or as complex, as we'd like to put it, as cataloging, etc. So there are different things that they're working with us on. However, nothing there that I can actually give out names just yet.
That's fair. You can't see my video with my laptop conked off, and I'm onto my mobile. I had to run it parallelly. Siddharth, if you want to talk about examples of companies that have successfully managed to leverage KDEM and establish.
Yeah. I think there are many, and thanks to partners like yours and our GIA partners that we have these delegations visiting every fortnight, and we have been successfully handled or facilitated their entity here in Bangalore and partly large in other parts of the state as well. There is Edugero EdTech, which is EdTech firm, and they have set up an office. The Global Guide is a tourism health tech startups. We have somebody in health tech, somebody in deep tech also, and that is through academia collaboration that we have got into. There are many startups which are into AVGC, where we are taking help from the gaming startup ecosystem from Barcelona. So they're leading gaming startups from there also. There are many examples when it comes to foreign startups already having established their presence in India, and we're helping them not only with meetings, but also with customer onboardings.
Great. No, thank you so much, Siddharth and Rahul. I think it's been fairly insightful. As government-backed entities, initiatives, I think the kind of work that both of the organizations are doing is phenomenal. And like I said, one being product innovation at its peak, the other one being more from a programming standpoint, but both of them kind of very critical or very crucial to what the innovation and technology landscape in India is. One being a framework on top of which people can build stuff, and that's only going to further digital commerce. And as KDEM and like Siddharth, you mentioned several state governments, I think as an enabler, as a facilitator, I think it really does open doors. So in both cases, open is the keyword, and India is open for business. So I think it's fantastic, the kind of work you do. With that, I'd like to pass it on back to you, Kainath and Anshul.
Thanks, Ajay, and thank you, Siddharth and Rahul, for having this insightful chat with Ajay. It was definitely, we have a lot of takeaways, myself and the attendees as well. With this, we come to the end